Welcome to Memory Matters for All Ages. I'm Janelle Nichols from the Gables of Hudson Assisted Living Residence, and I want to welcome back Catherine Kilpatrick, speech pathologist, national speaker, author, all-around great gal. Kathy, welcome back.
Oh, this is always good to do with you.
It is. It's good time. I know that caregivers and individuals are near to your heart. I know you work with individual clients, giving them specific strategies to help with someone that has dementia or cognitive impairment of any sort. Tell us a little bit about your work with individuals. I know you work with home health clients also.
I do, and the topic this time is driving, and very often I am seeing someone who was driving prior to hospitalization and now is not driving. Some are aware that maybe they're not going to drive again, and others are, oh yeah, I can drive again, and I'm trying to say you need to check with your doctor because I'm seeing the cognitive issues and the concerns. So we're going to address some of that today.
Very good. I see that so often in the assisted living realm, working with families. I have had a little experience now in my own family with it, but it is very difficult when you start to notice things in a family member or a loved one. And it's also very difficult when you find yourself changing roles from child to maybe a caregiver. They say that the roles switch between a parent and a child. Can you give us some strategies when it's time to approach a parent, say, we've noticed this and this and this, we don't want you to drive anymore?
Right. It is one of the toughest things. First of all, no one wants to give up their car keys. And we also walked this journey with my mom, who moved into assisted living and was pretty capable. So, but we don't want to give up that independence. And very often, you know, a lot of the home health people that I see may not have access to transportation, and they didn't think it out 20 years ago that they needed to relocate somewhere where that might be a possibility before. It's about being proactive. I know with my mom, she had fell and lost the sight in her left eye, and I brought her out from Massachusetts to be tested by a local rehab facility here, and her cognition at the time was really good. So we didn't do that part of the assessment, but we did reaction time and then a road test. And it was pretty interesting because it was not her car, and on the highway and streets, you know, she could navigate around Hudson, but, you know, not necessarily to other places. And he came back and said that she was okay to drive. I've had other people where they've only gone through the first part of the assessment and then they've not been able to continue with that. So it's really important to have that driving assessment. I've also heard comments from family members that are saying, well, it's going to be inconvenient. You know, they need to drive because I'm not around. And inconvenience, when we give you some tips later on, we're going to talk a little bit about that. But what about safety? And we frequently see older adults who are great drivers, and we see others where there may be some difficulties, and they may have, you know, had accidents and things like that. So it's really an important thing to kind of look at.
But you know that there's all kinds of transportation availabilities out there for seniors. Now it can be hired, or sometimes churches have ministries. So there are ways for a senior to still get around and have their independence. So that's not something families can really hang their hat on.
But remember last time we talked about attitude.
Right, right.
Attitude,
I understand.
Attitude's the unbelief. So you're totally right. And we're going to, you have a resource you want to share later on. And then I've seen family members where both were comfortable driving, but they're seeing changes. And it's so neat when you see this situation where I'll go in and they'll say, you know what, we've decided that it's time to leave our home. We're out in the country a little bit. Our family's not around. It's an inconvenience. Sometimes we don't qualify for some of the transportation they don't have to pay very much for. And so, excuse me, we've decided to go to an independent or an assisted living so that there are other transportation options, which is really good. And so what we want to look at are some of the red flags. Somebody goes out for a long time, doesn't return, doesn't accomplish what they were doing, and they just say, oh, you know, well, I just, you know, kind of took more time. And I had a client, actually I was on vacation, and the woman was talking about this was going on with her mom. mom, and she was in 100% denial that her mom had some cognitive and memory issues. And after we had conversations, she realized, excuse me, that she needed to look at the bigger situation, and sent me a letter afterwards, and she says, you're right, she was getting lost. Another thing is minor dents, and they just kind of appear, a scratch here and a dent there. Not a major accident, not reported. Yes, somebody could have dinged their car, but if it's repeatedly happening and it hadn't before, maybe there's something going on. Another red flag can be not recognizing places that are familiar. And I remember driving my mom up to my aunt and uncle's house one day, and we used to live there when I was a child, and I went the way she normally did, and she wasn't sure where we were. And that was a red flag in terms of, I think maybe we need to start looking at the bigger picture here. And here's an interesting one, and you talk about kind of pet peeves and things that concern me. I have seen families where they will not ride with mom or dad or grandma or grandpa because of the way they drive, and yet they will allow them to pick up their younger children who are not of driving age. And so often the conversation is, that child doesn't have an option. You need to ride with them. If you don't feel safe, then you should not be allowing your child to be transported under those circumstances. And I could go on and on and on with the stories, because this is on the top list of 3 things that we're going to talk about, some other ones down the road, being medication and finances and some safety issues. But I put driving in as this first one because it's always the question that everybody has.
It is. It's a real hot button. And like you, I could give example after example. I will give one quick example at Kent Ridge at Golden Pond, our other residence. This was many, many years ago, and this gal is gone now, but she had just moved in. And she came to get me one day, all concerned. She says, Janelle, somebody hit my car in the parking lot. So I got one of the gentlemen there, and we went out to look at the car. Well, the car was covered, covered in dents and scrapes and scratches. I mean, this had been going on. She must have hit everything in Northeast Ohio. So we went back, we calmed her down, told her we would take steps to take care of this, how sorry we were this had happened, and then a phone call to the son alleviated that. But I've also seen families where the senior will insist that their car is there, the families keep the keys. And that has smoothed things over with the senior in some respects too, where they know that car is sitting there even though there are no keys for it on the premises. Yeah. So it is really a hot button, and I think it's because driving represents our independence.
Absolutely,
you know, to jump in the car and go wherever you want to go, that's just freedom. That's I mean, I think of not having that.
Yeah.
It'd be awful.
I mean, in assisted living, my mom's thing, because she didn't like to do the activities so much because of her hearing loss and all, and she would go do an errand probably 4 times a week, you know, just go to the local whatever store and do something, and that was kind of her outing, you know, for the day.
Absolutely.
And, you know,
right. Take us into some solid suggestions. Okay. If we have someone in our lives like this that we want to help, some steps.
Great. And we did, before I get into that, I just want to mention, our plan is the end of December. We're going to be doing a topic related to caregivers. And we will be talking, because it will be around the Christmas holidays, and that's when people often see things. We will be talking specifically about how to approach difficult conversations and send you some references for that. So that'll be helpful. But to mention, you know, some of the things, if a person has a vision loss, like my mom who was blind in one eye, or they have a hearing loss. It scared me one day. I was driving with my mom and I heard an ambulance, and you know how you're trying to locate where it is? And I said, Mom, where is that? Just automatically, like I would say to you if you were in the car, because I wasn't finding it right away. What siren? And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, you know, what if a child who was low to the ground and on the left-hand side, you know, was in danger and she didn't see it or hear it? So I think families need to look a whole lot more at the bigger picture about those. I had a gentleman who has macular degeneration, and he said, oh, I was told it was okay if I still drive. And I thought, you know, this is the type of person that we don't want to take away that privilege from anybody, but we want to make sure they're safe. And so that's really important. An excellent resource. Go to the National Alzheimer's site. And again, there's references in my blog related to this program later on. They have 4 videos where they have a person in dialogue with the person that they would like to give up driving, to relinquish the car keys. And it's a very soft, gentle, honoring, dignified approach. And then at the end of that conversation, you may want to then listen to the tips that they're suggesting, which can be really, really helpful. There's other documents on there as well that can be something that would be helpful. And we talked a little bit about, driver assessment, and check with your Alzheimer's Association or sometimes the rehab centers. Often it's in an occupational therapy department, although we have several resources in this community. And I will make sure when I do the blog that there will be links to the things for those of you that are in this area. Those of you that are watching outside, because we're uploaded to YouTube and you can watch all the old episodes and all, it'll give you a sense of where you might look in your area. And I think that's really important. And then I think the best thing that I did with my mom was planting the seeds. And it was just, because nothing worked about giving up the car keys. She was just very adamant.
Right,
I said,
right.
I came in before Christmas one year and I said, these are the things I'm worried about. You're very small. Now she was down to 83 pounds. Even if you bump something, the airbag might go off and you might get hurt. If there's a detour, you don't see as well, and you can't use the cell phone because of your hearing loss. So just mentioned a few things and dropped it. And then when I came back another time, I talked about, there's transportation here at the assisted living. You can get your Hot Pockets, which you like as a snack. My sister-in-law goes to the store all the time, so she could get that. They had the lactate milk there, and so we came up with some solutions. And so Christmas Eve, she announced, I'm giving up the car keys. It is my choice. And this woman loved driving, had been doing it forever. She said she never had an accident or a ticket, which I can believe, and she wanted to go out of driving with a clear record. So
in other words, you got her to the point where she realized, and I know what you're going to say, with dignity. We were talking before the show. There's a gentleman in the area that is a retired highway patrol officer, and he has started a program where he will work with the senior. Now, not the family. He takes the senior out. The family stays away, takes the senior out into the car, and his goal is to bring that senior to the point, just like your mom, where the senior says, I'm going to give up my car keys. But he does it with such a respect and such a gentleness. We're going to try to have his information on the blog. Watch for that information at the end of the program. But there was a gentleman at Kent Ridge, and we were all just in fear. He was still driving, and we were all panicked. The family was panicked. We brought this gentleman in. He spent, the goal was to spend 3 hours with this gentleman, and at the halfway point, an hour and a half, this gentleman said, just stop. He said, I shouldn't be driving. And that's where you want to bring these seniors to. It's all about dignity. All right, Kathy, what do you have? Close us out for today.
Okay. How would you want someone to approach you about the discussion later in life? What proactive things can you do? Think about that, because we get into these situations and it's like over the top and difficult, but what can you say to your children or your grandchildren so that you can have the dignity when that time comes? And there's a quote here by Adam Smith: as we have no immediate experience of what other men feel, we can form no idea of the manner in which they are affected, but by conceiving what we ourselves should feel in the like situation.
Thanks, Kathy. Thanks, everyone. Now, go make it a great day. That's very good.